Welcome to Mastering Fundraising, a podcast for nonprofit leaders of all titles and all experience levels. Mastering Fundraising endeavors to cover the most important fundraising topics with the goal of helping the audience reach their full potential as fundraisers. This podcast will share stories, tips, and guidance on the most important elements of fundraising. If you want to earn an advanced degree in fundraising, this is the podcast for you. Mastering Fundraising is a collaboration between Fulcrum Nonprofit Leadership and the 5-Tool Fundraiser, two leaders in providing relevant and expert content to fundraisers and nonprofit leaders. Without further delay, let's jump into the current episode. Please join me in welcoming your host for today, Chris Looney.
Welcome to Mastering Fundraising, a show that interviews the world's top fundraisers to explore the most important fundraising topics with the goal of helping the audience reach their full potential as fundraisers. My name is Chris Looney, and I have the good fortune to be your host for this deep dive into fundraising. Today on Mastering Fundraising, I'm thrilled to welcome Kenya Beckmann, a respected leader in higher ed and healthcare philanthropy and a key executive at Providence in California, one of the nation's largest health systems. Kenya brings amazing experience navigating the complexities of large multi-entity fundraising environments. Yes, that's right. Large multi-entity fundraising environments, not something that you hear every fundraiser having to face or deal with. So I'm excited to dig in. And in this episode, we're really going to explore the shared support model, a strategic approach to fundraising that coordinates infrastructure and services across multiple foundations and agencies within a broader system. And Kenya is going to share insights, lessons learned, and best practices that can help any fundraiser working in a federated or multi-unit setting. So whether you're supporting a local hospital foundation or leading enterprise-wide advancement operations, this conversation is going to shed light on what it takes to make shared services work for fundraisers, for donors, and most importantly, for the mission. So thank you for joining me today, Kenya.
Hey, Chris, I'm super happy to be here. Thanks for bringing a conversation that doesn't get a lot of airplay, giving it a venue. Hopefully it will be helpful as folks are navigating, as you said, a complex environment.
Yeah, complex for sure. And I'm willing to bet that this might be the first conversation about this
very
topic.
Niche.
Yeah, very exactly. Well, that's what we got to focus on sometimes. Yeah. So we got to keep people on their toes and
absolutely
talk about things that maybe they aren't exposed to in everyday fundraising. So
yeah, absolutely.
These are gifts, right? But not everybody. Yeah. So we're looking forward to learning and taking advantage of your significant experience and expertise. So before we really dive in to the model, let's talk a little bit about your background, your leadership journey. You've had an incredible amount of experience, varied experience as well. So tell us a little bit about how you became the leader you are today.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chris. You know, I'm one of those kids who grew up in an all nonprofit background. I don't know how many of them there are, but I think you can relate a little, certainly with your family. But no one in my family actually had a for-profit job. So, you know, my parents came from either direct service nonprofit or clergy, my grandparents. And so for me, the way I understood the world was one of service. And it's not that that was any more noble than any other thing. It's just kind of what the family business was to me. And so when I graduated from college and everyone was going to be consultants and with all the big five, I didn't really understand my place in that. So I went to graduate school for all the wrong reasons. And along the way, decided, you know what, I don't need a PhD in anthropology. This isn't the job for me. I loved it. It was great. But at the same time, I knew it wasn't like my chosen jobs. And so I'm grateful to, you know, a colleague, actually, Wendy Scott Keeney. She's somebody that has been really successful in fundraising. I took her to lunch and because she was in my program, and I said, like, what do you do? And she explained fundraising to me. And it sounded sort of made up. Like, you get to work with really great people who want to make a difference. You still get to use your brain and research and write, but there was a business pace. And that was really what kind of drew me to it, is that pace of corporate life and the hustle, but for something really good. So that's how I got into nonprofit work, and went right into fundraising at the University of Michigan. And then from there, and what was interesting is one of my roles there was that regional fundraiser, right?
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a precursor in some ways to some of the lessons I've learned now, where you represent the whole university, but in an area and being able to have multiple constituents. And then when we moved out to California, I was at UC Irvine for the school at the School of Humanities, and then spent a lot of time at Hogue, 13 years there, and got to lead their comprehensive campaign and really bring, and we can talk about this later, like try to develop a new model of fundraising for community hospitals. After that campaign, I felt called to Providence because I believe that philanthropy should be democratized across different settings, that all the best fundraisers shouldn't be at places raising $1 billion a year, that we can kind of do some things at scale. So I wanted to try something that was hard. I'm drawn to things that haven't been done before, and that maybe have a 50-50 chance of success.
Oh my gosh. Well,
but
higher odds with you.
I don't know, man. So yeah, that's basically, how I got here. Yeah.
Amazing. I love it. And I was amused by the comment about fundraising, the job being made up or sounding like it's made up. I think every parent of every girlfriend I ever had thought the same thing. Like this kid, like he's doing something that's totally made up. It's not real. How could that
to be fair, the Loonies were really way out there, like trailblazers.
I didn't say
yes.
my parents, but not my parents, but other parents. Like
for sure. For sure.
That's not a thing. That's not. It's
totally. That's not a thing.
Well, what's been your favorite professional role over the years in the work that you've done? What have you enjoyed most?
Yeah, I mean, I think it hasn't been one job, but it has been a type of thing that I find like kind of I get the spark comes alive in me, and that's creating new things, whether it's a new process, a new reality for an organization, or just doing something, as I said, that hasn't been done, or a new way of thinking about it. And so that's what kind of fills my cup, is anytime I can be the one that's like creating a vision or describing a vision that feels just out of reach, that may be really hard, but then getting people fired up enough to go after it anyway, and to see how each individual is able to do things they haven't done before. And in doing so, they become like more excited about their own ability. They feed into their colleagues. And so my favorite role is one of, kind of, hopefully I always talk about Braveheart because it is kind of like way out in front, but I want it to end differently because that was a really gnarly ending. But I do like the idea of like, let's go. And if anything, the thing that my biggest weakness is I get excited about a lot. Like I can generate a lot of ideas. And so the challenge is having that editing eye of like, okay, we can't chase everything and go hard at everything. So I try to surround myself with people who can rein that in a little bit. So I think that's my favorite type of thing to do, though.
That's awesome. And I think you pointed to something important, that fundraising can be very entrepreneurial, or it can be something very enjoyable for people that are entrepreneurial, because you're always trying to start something, create something, build something that probably hasn't been done or hasn't been done well. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, along the way, I'm sure you had some help, standing on the shoulders of giants. I'm interested to kind of know some of those mentors, some of those people that helped you along the way, and how did they help you?
Yeah, I mean, well, definitely goes back to sitting, at a table in Zanzibar's in Ann Arbor with Wendy Keeney. And I'm so grateful that she took the time to do that. Wendy went on and has just been a tremendous fundraiser in higher ed. And then it's interesting, as I thought about this question, when I look back, I had very different types of people that I learned from. Michigan is certainly where I became a fundraiser. It's my roots. It's my fundraising DNA. And so at the time, Catherine Kurtz was my most kind of vice president in that regional role. And I just remember going to her office once, and what she was known for was having butcher paper, like this big roll of butcher paper, and of paper, and she would just roll it out and be like, okay, Kenya, this is what you need. She started drawing things and like,
fascinating.
It was, and it was so cool because I do that today. I don't have the butcher thing, but like I'm all about like, let's just map this out. And I don't know that I did that before. And she had just a laser focused way of getting to the real. And so it took me a while, I think, to learn that, but I did observe it early. Another leader at Michigan, she really showed me that work-life balance. I remember her going, Kathy Oken. I remember we like driving to appointments in her minivan with like shrapnel everywhere from all these kids. And I was like 20 something. I was like, I don't know what all that is.
Yeah.
Fast forward, I had 3 minivans, 3 kids, did all
Right.
that. But it did kind of give me confidence that you could do that at a high level and not give up your family commitments as
Awesome.
well. Bob Groves, the happiest fundraiser and most effective, so it's like little pieces along the way. Ken Bentley is not a fundraiser, but is somebody who, as a like kind of civil rights and just like leader and first Black of a lot of things, has helped me navigate the world of being often the only brown face in many spaces, and how to lead in that way and integrity. So, like all of us, there's like a quilt of people that have to take blame for who we are.
I love that. You've used that before, maybe, but I've not.
Yeah, no.
Built a quilt.
Yeah.
I love that concept. So thank you for
Yeah, of course.
and sharing the variety of influences. It's amazing. And they've all contributed to this amazing kind of leadership capability that you have. Maybe there's a philosophy behind it, or elements of a philosophy. So how would you describe your own philosophy in the realm of nonprofit leadership?
Sure. Yeah, a couple words or phrases that come to mind is I believe in high accountability, constant process improvement and achievement, and high love. And my biggest complaint is that I see people choosing one or the other. And that high love means that we aren't able to have very direct conversations. And that high achievement means we do it in an environment without love. And I think that you can absolutely knock it out of the park on both of those vectors. And so I'm always in pursuit of that. I think what also comes forward for me as a leader, and those who I've gotten to serve and lead, I think would resonate with this, is that I'm a super direct communicator, because I really think that all problems are either process or communication, and it's not ever the people. And so that can actually be pretty uncomfortable, because I can have very, very direct conversations about what did not work. And it's hard for people. They have to grow to trust that I really feel nothing but love for that person. And I think that I've discovered is just how I am wired. But I think it does take a while for people to really trust that that's true, like that because I think that's a little bit unusual. And so, but I think if we can get to that space, we can create environments where people can be their very best, because they trust that it's never about them in an existential way. It's about things we can fix. We can always fix process and communication, right? So that's kind of it. But it's always like shooting for what's next. It's always, I think I probably don't spend enough time celebrating, because I'm so focused on like, what else could we do for these communities, and how can we be better so that they have more, and always chasing that next best thing.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think for everyone out there, you don't need to go to grad school. You just saved yourself a couple $100,000 right there with the lessons that you just explained, the accountability, the love, the process improvement. It's just that's it. That's how you make it happen. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
So let's jump in now to the
of
our conversation, which covers that important topic of shared support models and fundraising. Sure. And let's start with the basics.
Okay.
What the heck are we talking about here? What is a shared support model in the context of hospital system fundraising, and how does it differ from other organizational structures?
Sure. So, I think when we think about a shared support system, what we're looking at is how can we maximize what is happening locally without repeating every single function locally. And so it's taking those things that could be operated outside of that geography and that could be operated at scale, and saying like, let's provide those locally, but let's do it in a way that maximizes our investment. And so if you think about a hospital, so in California, we have hospitals from Humboldt County all the way down to Mission Viejo. And that includes 6 hospitals in Los Angeles, one of the largest cities in the world. But that also includes Humboldt, the High Desert, and Orange County. So that's a wildly different constellation of hospitals. And so if you're looking at that, Humboldt is never going to be able to staff a level of excellence to have full gift processing, data analytics, communications, all these things at the level that that community deserves. Because so to buy into a shared support model, you have to fundamentally believe that no community should not have the very finest fundraising available in the country.
Love it.
Like, you have to just believe that, and you have to be unabashed about it. And so if that's where you start, then how you build that shared support model is always with that in mind. But at its root, it's about being able to do more with fewer people located at each spot.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. That's awesome. And so what are sort of the core components of that model and that structure for Providence in California?
Yeah, for sure. So we have, annual giving and direct response is a key one. Research of your donors, communications, so your newsletters and some of the scripting and proposals, certainly like all proposals. Interestingly, we had planned giving as a part of that, and then recently made a shift to have the planned giving officers go back into each foundation and keep a smaller group of expertise at our divisional level. So we can get into that later. I think you do have to have the flexibility to adjust your model. For us, we have like strategic HR support. We have like kind of strategic expertise that is also shared. So we have a couple of folks who can go into any ministry and just level people up. And so it's not that that team has a lot of people, but it's someone or a couple of people that, again, like the High Desert wouldn't have access to recruit them and pay them what they need to be paid, but they can come in and do board education and engagement or fundraiser, consulting and management and whatnot, and then go to another ministry. And so it's kind of, I think it could differ based on your hospital system, but for us, those are some of the core things: corporate foundation relations, to more legal work, basically everything that isn't relationship based, then that needs to be very local.
That's what I was going to ask, so that speaks to a lot of the systems in fundraising and activities in fundraising that don't have to absolutely be relationship based. What have you found is irreplaceable? Where are you recognizing or just know full well that you could never do this in a sort of shared model? You have to have representation.
Yeah, well, so where's kind of the hot take for me is that I think leadership, so I believe philanthropy is local. That doesn't mean you can't have multi-ministry opportunities or system-wide things. You can, but that should be, I feel like your effort in chasing that should be like kind of surgical, to stick with this metaphor. Yeah. I think in general, philanthropy is always going to be local. And so I really believe, obviously, that the relationships and the portfolios, but also, and this is a little bit of a hot take in community hospital settings, that leader needs to be a very strong leader locally. So in the South Division, though I lead all of the chief philanthropy officers, I am not like out there as like the face of philanthropy for Providence. Right. And like, if there's a huge donor, I'm coming in and like dealing with that, because that's fully bonkers, right? And so what I'd rather be is kind of low-key behind the scenes, making sure that every CPO is the best philanthropy leader in their market by far. And so if you do that, you're going to raise more money because donors have trust in their local leader. Yeah. And so what I want to do is be able to like create that environment. And so I think when you're going down the shared support model, you need to be careful not to lose sight of the fact that just like patient care, the dollars are made in the coffee shops, in the offices, in that zip code. And I think sometimes it's easy to fall away from that.
That's awesome. Wonderful. Yeah, it's so good. Well, what are some of the benefits that you've experienced or that
Yeah.
you can point to of that shared support model, both for
Yeah.
fundraisers and for the donors that you're serving?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest takeaway at the highest level is kind of speed, acumen, and expertise. So what I found when I came to Providence is like a lot of community hospitals, it was capital campaign after capital campaign, no sense of how to do comprehensive fundraising, not very integrated. Not all the chief philanthropy officers were even on the ELT, their local executive teams. It was kind of over here. It was opaque to the operators. Like, so a hospital CEO was just grateful for whatever they got, but they didn't know how it came through. They was like,
Yeah.
okay. And they didn't know that, like, what was possible. They just were like,
Right. You don't even know what you don't know.
thank
Like,
you.
oh,
And
your
so,
expectations were so low.
yeah. And so how then do you make that change, all those changes quickly? You cannot do it one hospital at a time, right? And so what the biggest effect has been that we've been able to, in just a few years, dramatically elevate every ministry. All but three of our foundations have had their biggest years ever in their history. And I think the other ones are coming right around in the past 3 years, which, it says, I think, a lot. A couple of things I'd call out. One is like endowed chairs. So endowed chairs are still pretty new to community hospital settings, but they are a game changer in terms of your ability to compete with higher ed.
Okay.
And so places like Santa Rosa, St. Jude, like all of these places that just didn't even really understand endowed chairs, we were able to bring like full playbooks. This is how you build it. This is how you communicate it.
Right.
This is the stuff that goes wrong right after, all of that. And so in really short order, we've seen our numbers of endowed chairs like just really pick up and take off. That would have taken years for them. The other is that shift to comprehensive fundraising. It's so important. It's what higher ed does really well. They raise money for everything all at once.
Yeah.
And community hospitals just did not know how to do it. And there's a bunch of mechanics that go to that. So we're able to help every single hospital get there faster. And then lastly would be I think dashboards and data analytics. So again, the opaqueness of fundraising is a comfort for those who kind of want to hide in that. Yep. But I think I want my hospital partners to consider us with as much seriousness as they do quality. And they can't do that if they don't understand how we measure ourselves. And so what we've spent a lot of time is creating really amazing performance dashboards in all kinds of different ways that we then bring to our operators that we use for our management. Again, that could not be done with that level of expertise in every market. And so we're able to do that as a shared support team and then pour that into each ministry and into each foundation. And it's really paid off.
Yeah, it's remarkable. There's so many things to unpack there with what you just said. I was immediately thinking of McDonald's not having Golden State Foods to kind of provide the consistency of the food product so that wherever you go and whatever McDonald's you're at, you're going to have the same experience in terms of food, right? And then I was thinking then to those CEOs of hospitals who feel so fortunate just to have someone that they can offload some of the fundraising work to, but not really knowing what is truly possible.
Exactly.
If you can bring forward efficiency, reduce redundancy, create systems and strategic alignment and consistency in all of these things. And you mentioned, which was a great example, about the not endowed chairs. What was the endowed chairs?
Endowed chairs, shift to comprehensive fundraising and data.
Right. Yeah. So those are all amazing examples of how the shared services model really helps elevate performance and solves some complex challenges. Are there any other kind of examples that you can share?
Physician engagement, Chris. Oh my goodness. That's probably the biggest one. Is physician engagement is one of those things where you think if a CPO is walking down the hallways of the hospital and physicians say, hi, 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 that's engagement. And it's not. There are very specific ways to engage physicians such that you actually see a return from that, so that they're actually really helping you develop and close gifts.
Okay.
And so again, like we've been able to bring physician leadership groups to our hospitals and to our foundations with a playbook, with a way of doing it that's there, still hyper local. One of the most important things we do is we say, name your physician leadership group after somebody local. So if you were to lay them all out, the decks all look remarkably the same.
Yeah.
But if you were to open the decks, the first few are about the local physician for whom their leadership group is named. Right. And so you're always braiding the local with this larger level of expertise, but that has paid off for us in a really, really big way, along with board engagement. So when we first started this, we noticed a lot of the boards were not following their bylaws, had not updated their bylaws in a long time, had people who've been on the board since the 70s. And by having like one of Renee Bianco, one of our colleagues who's amazing at board work, she was able to work with every single foundation and their board members. And sometimes she got to be like the big prov enemy when you needed it to be, which was great. So it preserved the CPO from getting that splatter.
Nice.
And she's amazing. If you know her, she was able just to work all of that through. And now every single foundation has bylaws that are current, that they understand, that they bought into. And it seems like a small thing, but it's like that infrastructure that allows you to build onto it. Same with Greg Gissendaner is the one who brought all of it brings the endowed chairs, the principal gifts. This is a big one. So principal gifts, places like Humboldt, St. Mary, Jude, any of these communities, they don't understand that they should be getting $50 million gifts.
Yeah, and they have it in their communities, right? So
exactly. Yeah. I mean, UCLA, we're not like Stanford, like all these people are getting, why are we not worthy of those? We are worthy, but we don't know how to do it. And so he knows how to do it. One of the best principal gift fundraisers in the country. So bringing dashboards, playbooks, facilitating the meetings and the conversations, it's been great.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I'm excited to ask Renee to be on the show to talk about the board work. She's a Fulcrum Charter member, so I think I can get that scheduled, and it would be really helpful. So I think you just maybe dropped about 10 amazing benefits there without even a hiccup. So clearly you're pretty certain of all of these different benefits, and you've seen them play out. And I also, by the way, love the fact that you're using this comfort language like quilts and braiding. It just feels so homespun. I love it. It feels comfortable.
And nothing is not homespun. No.
That's great. It's making me feel just nostalgic.
Cozy. Okay.
For 80s, 70s and 80s television.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about the sort of management and leadership required with these systems. Not easy to manage, I would imagine.
Right.
What are the kind of leadership skills that are really critical for managing these kinds of shared support environments?
Let me tell you, if you can lead an environment like this for a while and have success, you will be not just a better executive, but a better human. It is hard. So what Greg and I and some others really helped do at Hogue was it was amazing. It was next level amazing. And then it's all right, let's go do that at Prov times 14. Humbling. And so I think a big piece of it is the team that we built there was outstanding. Not everybody would do well here, because I've learned even that it takes a particular set of leadership skills. So I think very high EQ is super important, because you're going into a lot of different markets that are very different. A market that is sixth generation, local, you'd only know us if you grew up out of the soil. How do you convince them that what you're bringing is going to help them and not kind of steamroll them? You have to have the right affect and the right EQ and the right mindset. And then you're in some environments where they want you to flex into your expertise, and they are all experts at what they do, and it's a certain kind of vibe. And you have to be able to read the room. Now, fundraisers are pretty good at that, but this is a whole nother level. You also have to have the humility to understand that your value is only as good as the local success that you inspire. Right. And a lot of people love shared support, because now all of a sudden they're not on the front line, but they sort of feel like a boss. And that's like, that is the wrong attitude. You're
Okay.
only as good as they are good. And so we hold ourselves to a very short distance between a dollar in the door and the activities that you do. Your job in a shared support team as a team member is not to aggregate other people's work and put it on a PowerPoint. Your job is to help make their work better. And so I think you have to have a mindset that is looking only for that. And it's hard. So when we hire, like, I hire kind of the best at at that particular skill set. I think if you're not the best person doing that job, how are you going to advise other people? So again, to talk about Greg, like Greg is the best principal gift fundraiser I know. If he weren't, how could I, in good faith, have him talk to some of our other really awesome CPOs and lead them in principal gifts?
Yeah. Right.
So you have to be the best at what you do. And you also have to have a learning and teaching mindset and kind of have a little humility. I know that probably is not reading like a lot of humility right now, but it's there where you feel like, I don't need to be in front.
Okay.
I want the person in front to be their best version of themselves and feel like I contributed to that. So those are some of the skills. And then also process. You have to be an operations person to know what to do first. Again, you have 14 foundations. You can't do everything all at once. So what's your highest ROI? So your strategic thinking has to be on point to do this and not that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That the process challenge might be one of the more difficult challenges in the nonprofit space because it's underappreciated.
Yeah.
Of course, everybody wants the sales kind of
Yeah.
dynamic. They think of that when they think of fundraising, and they don't think about the important blocking and tackling
Yeah.
that is essential to keep that quarterback looking good and able to make the nice pass to use a
It's
sports.
funny you should say that, Chris, because I have a deep and weird passion for the offensive line. And I'm now realizing probably why. Like I am the one who is all O-line all the time in football. And I think it's in part because they're under-recognized, and without them, nothing happens on the field. And
Right.
so if you think about that, that process that you talked about, we talk a lot in the South Division, process protects. And the better your processes are and the better your communication is, the stronger you'll be. All the vision without process is just like chaos. So you have to have process. And so that's been, I think, one of our biggest successes is trying to always refine our process in ways that hopefully feel like the O-line, because you're always focused on the running back and quarterback, and you don't realize that it's an easy job to do when someone is holding back everyone else.
Right. When you have time and you have vision and you have clarity,
Right.
everything seems to work out much better.
Yeah.
Right. Well, maybe after this we can go watch The Blind Side or something and
Yes.
share our affinity for the offensive line, which is
Yeah.
great. Well, what are some of the misconceptions that fundraisers have about shared services? You mentioned a couple, I think, that
Yeah.
were important to already hear, but any other challenges or misconceptions
Oh,
with?
yeah. It's a hard thing. Like for real, I don't want to make it sound like it's an easy road. I think one of the bigger challenges is that, CPOs or chief philanthropy officers in a local ministry are by definition really good at their jobs. Like they wouldn't be in that position otherwise.
Right.
And so I think there's always a tension of having someone who isn't you come in and tell you, hey, there's this new way, or there's this way you want to pick this vendor. We have this vendor and a better price for this vendor, and we think they're better across our market. This is a guy that you've worked with for 20 years. Like, I mean, there's a real tension there. And so I think that is one piece of it, is that you have kind of dueling expertise. And so you have to then, again, have really high EQ on both sides.
Yeah.
The other is in things like even like budgeting. So budgeting when you have a shared support team is a challenge, right? Because they have influence over some of what's happening locally, like the direct mail pieces, communications, your galas, our special events are all on our shared support teams.
Okay.
And so like I've been in budget meetings where a chief philanthropy officer will say something like, well, that's what shared support told me to put in. And so we have to tackle that right away. They're like, well, I mean, the process was that you guys developed this together. So there can be a little bit of bus driving and bus throwing underneath. And it's a human nature thing, but you have to get right on top of it and make sure that your culture is one where everyone's success is tied together.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. How do you deal with like the local impact message, storytelling, so that they're not lost? Because I imagine that can be a struggle when you're just trying to sing from the same hymnal on a lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely. We do kind of simple things like make sure photos are local, you know, and that we're not like using a photo from Southern California and you're like there's no redwoods. We need redwoods. We're in, you know, Humboldt. So local photos, local stories, giving control, making sure like where it can be local, let it be local. Like don't fight over silly things, you know. So let's take donor recognition. So absolutely you should have generalized standards. But I think each chief philanthropy officer, if they want to name a thing for a certain amount of money and it makes the most sense for them, I'll have a conversation with them as their leader and like whatever. But ultimately, it's theirs to decide. Like, why fight that? Like that's a wild thing to fight about.
Total control.
Yeah, I mean, it's like where you can give all local control. Give investment committees. All of our investment committees are local. They get support from our finance team that is divisional and that's shared support. But like, how awesome is it to say your job, local board, is to turn our $1 into $4, and we trust you to do it.
Right.
And so you're constantly reinforcing. So I always just say, like, pick the things that matter the most and let go of the things that really you can just keep very local. And then always verbalize it. Remind them, this is local, this is local, this is local.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really, really good. Well, let's look ahead.
Yeah.
Let's pivot now and start looking to the future. And I'd love for you to offer some advice. What would you suggest to nonprofit or hospital systems just beginning to explore a shared services model? What should they do? What should they avoid? You know, like what would be your general advice?
Well, before we even get to the hospitals, one thing that I think would be an interesting conversation is to think about those nonprofits who aren't hospitals and aren't part of systems. And is there a way for them to leverage shared support? Because I think if we think about the future, I feel like there's something there because there are a lot of small nonprofits who face the same challenge of they can't replicate all of these things that we need at the local, you know, shelter or, you know, mom and pop nonprofit that's doing amazing work. So I think that is something we need to, as an industry, make sure that we're availing for folks. In terms of a hospital, and like if say you're a smaller hospital system and you know are facing all the things that we're facing financially, and you're getting a lot of pressure to make fundraising more efficient, I definitely think the first thing you want to do is get in a room and have a conversation like we've had today to say, you know, what are the most important, starting with what's most important to stay local. Like start local and say these things have to stay local. Where can you start to get some scale? And then really bring people along with the why and be willing, you know, another key trait for our leaders who are in the shared support system is they have to be ready to travel and they have to be willing. I spent 4 hours going up to to Mission Hills yesterday and back. And it was for an hour and a half meeting. And it was super important that I did that. And all of our leaders do that. Get in the car, get on a plane and be present. And so that's, if you're starting this process, know that you need to be present, be eye to eye, explain, and be so transparent. So one of the big things for us is even how we allocate the fund, like the budget back to the ministries is fully transparent. It's not mysterious. What they're paying for. It's really important. Every year we do a survey back to each foundation to say, how are we doing as a shared support team? And then we also say, as a shared support team, how is that ministry doing as a partner? Because it goes both ways. And so that survey every year allows everybody to talk through, hey, I've been frustrated. It's taking too long to get a research request, blah, blah, blah. It also builds culture because we're willing to be transparent with each other. So my advice also would be to look at things like AI. Can that help you, be an accelerant or an expander to your work? Get advice, hear from what others, would have done differently.
Yep. Yep.
You don't have to repeat that again. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's worth looking after. It's worth pursuing. And always have expertise in mind and not just savings. If you have expertise as your driver, it's going to be better than if you have savings as your driver, because you don't want to repair to the mean. You want everybody to be excellent.
Yeah. 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 That's good. I think what's important to understand maybe conversation is that the shared support services model is not a mechanism just to save money.
Right.
It's a mechanism to elevate and
Yes.
expand the generation of revenue, which
Yeah.
enhances impact, right? Expands impact.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you have to, because I think a lot of people approach this idea as, oh man, if we can consolidate, then we can save ourselves so much money.
Yeah.
That's the wrong lens, maybe.
It is. It is, because expertise is, so in fundraising, talent is everything. Like truly, we saw that during COVID when all of our folks were working at home. They don't need an MRI. They don't need a marketing plan. They just need like a person, a phone, and like a donor, and they can raise money, right? And so expertise and talent and, kind of your work rate is what determines success. The problem is in fundraising, there are a lot of amazing fundraisers, but there are even more mediocre fundraisers. And then there are a lot of bad fundraisers. And the ones who are excellent get paid a lot. And the places that can pay a lot have a lot. And so right there, we have a problem. And so a shared support model allows you to spread that expertise. And in doing so, all of a sudden, this becomes an environment, an ecosystem, a country where it is a little more level. And that's what drives me. It's just like going back to my grandparents and my parents who are like, social activists and community builders, is to say, I don't want to be in that environment where only the best people are at these places that can afford to pay them, extremely high salaries.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's an important distinction. So good to be brought forward. How do you look at metrics? What are indicators that you use? How would you evaluate? How do you evaluate? How would you recommend fundraisers evaluate the success of these shared support structures and the infrastructure behind it?
Yeah. So I think it's interesting. So for our fundraisers, it's very clear. It's visits and solicitations. On their shared support teams, it is harder. So for me, we look at things like turnaround time for requests. So if I've requested, a research profile, how long does it take to get it? Also, flexibility to respond to last minute things. We know for sure that fundraising is an environment where there's a lot of last minute requests, no matter how much you plan. So is your shared support model flexible enough and responsive enough to get a amazing proposal, $10 million proposal to somebody in 48 hours? Like it should be. And if it's not, then let's tool that a little bit, right? So I would say responsiveness. I think you can measure certainly just on dollars raised. I mean, so certainly around your annual giving, that's pretty easy. Are your employees staying longer? So if this is all working and it's contributing to the good locally, your good folks are staying longer, right? And that to me is an important metric. When we send out our annual survey, we do look at things as we'll ask a question like, my ministry or my foundation is understood by my shared support colleagues. And that means they understand what's special and different. And we measure that. So I think you can always, this is something we do ourselves, our own survey. And so I would encourage right from the beginning, and we didn't do it early enough. We just started this 3 years ago. So that's one of the learnings is start it early, get your baseline and measure yourself. And then I think savings are important. You want to be able to show that it's an efficient, at least not more expensive way of doing business. And then your boards, that's your boards and your leaders. I would say that I see our chief executives and their leadership teams and our boards as really important constituents and reflectors of my success as a leader. Like, does that chief executive feel better about what's happening in philanthropy? And if not, then you should look at your model differently.
Yeah, great. Wonderful. You said something a few minutes ago that really hit me hard, and that's this concept of around the shared support model. Okay. And what's interesting is that as I think about these nonprofits that don't have shared support models, there is a future, I think, where we could bring together these nonprofits and we could potentially have them look like some of the hospitals, some of the higher educational institutions. And until there's more written about it and more energy behind it, I doubt that it's going to succeed. And I think it's perfect for one of the fulcrum kind of opinion pieces. You know, how do we make this happen? Because you see nonprofits cluster into buildings where there's this concept like, oh, you can share a printer. You can share a printer, right? Like, like this fridge is for everybody.
Right. Now you're shared.
You're shared. You're shared. Baby steps. You know, so I think this has some legs.
Well, there's a control issue, though, that's really hard. I mean, my dad is a nonprofit founder, and what he would do every year, he went through fundraisers like this, right? Because it's, you know, direct service, substance abuse, gang prevention, like very local. So they don't have a huge budget. And every year he would say, here, like, hand me the phone, tell them how to do fundraising. And I'd be like, bro, dad, like, are you kidding me? You have no database. They have like one person, you know, just it's a hot mess. And so I think, but he felt like the vision was so clear and the mission is so compelling that it must be a problem with the fundraiser that they can't just go out and clean up. Right. So no appreciation of the business of fundraising, even though his daughter's done this for a long time. So I think that will always be something. So imagine you founded a nonprofit to fill a void in your community. It's going to be really hard for you to let go of the pieces, even the behind the scenes pieces of that founders kind of syndrome. So I think that would be a big thing for us to tackle if one were to get serious about this, but it would be worth it.
Yeah. I mean, it would require lots of MOUs and lots of discussions and opens a lot of doors to some issues that don't exist now in those nonprofits, but could also aggregate that talent like you were talking about, right? And
absolutely.
And make sort of emergency services type nonprofits competitive with some of these behemoths that grab a lot of talent because you know, pay it.
They can.
So anyway, that's a conversation for another day, but I'm going to ask for your help on that going forward. Last and final question for today. As healthcare, or you could even make it more broad to talk about the nonprofit fundraising landscape as things continue to evolve, what innovations, what changes do you foresee for these shared services models looking ahead?
Yeah, no, I think that you will see more of them for sure, because you know, this is a bad business to be in. Like, you know, nonprofit healthcare is not one that you want to be in to make a lot of money. And so the need for philanthropy has never been more acute. The ability to fund it to the level that it needs to be has never been harder. And so for sure, there will be more shared support models that are created. I think that the opportunity is to make sure that as they're created, they learned from other models in the past and that they really leverage new tools like AI, you know, like other tools that are emerging and become the best versions of themselves pretty quickly. I think that, you know, we are going to have to be better at being healthcare executives who are philanthropy experts, not philanthropy executives who know how to do, you know, healthcare a little bit. right? And so if you're whatever domain that you're trying to serve, whether it's healthcare or higher ed, you need to see yourselves as being part of that community first. And then understand how philanthropy can feed that. And so I do think that all of our shared support team members, because they're one concentric circle even away from that, because they're not in a hospital. If you're in a hospital, it's easy to see yourself as a healthcare executive. Many of our chief philanthropy officers are administrators on call. Like they are literally like the ones sometimes running the hospital. But if you're a shared support person working largely remotely, it's going to take extra discipline for you to stay connected into the business of healthcare, into the constraints of healthcare. And if you don't do that well, you're not going to be the partner that those local foundations need. You'll slowly become or quickly become irrelevant and annoying to them because they're going to have to explain everything to you so that then you can help them. And you don't want to be that classic thing, which I certainly didn't make up, where, a consultant comes in, looks at your watch to tell you what time it is. Like the shared support model can become that way if you don't have the discipline to be fully embedded in the work.
Yeah, good. Well, we get back to that process issue again. Remind me again what you said. Process protects. Beautiful. And I'm embarrassed to say that I had never heard that phrase before, but I'm going to probably say it frequently in the coming months and years because it expresses in a very elegant and short way what is so fundamental and missing across a lot.
Well, I will TM that for my husband, Matt Beckmann, who is a political scientist, and he studies governance and institutions. And so he mentioned that to me several years ago, and it's become part of, and I thought more about the work we do. Yes. So process protects comes, I'll give that one to Matt Beckmann, but I do think its application in our world is underutilized. And if we can always just focus on that, along with culture, if you can get your culture and your process locked in, now you can do the biggest, boldest things that you and your colleagues never imagined, but that need to be done.
Right. Well, I was looking for a subject for my next white paper on leadership.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you're going to have to tell Matt that process protects is
process protects. Yeah.
Probably this evening. So thank you, Matt Beckmann.
Good job, Maddie.
And
Thanks.
actually,
This has been fun.
And more importantly, thank you, Kenya Beckmann, for really just being such a force for good. Thank you also for being a great teacher, mentor to so many others, including our audience today. Your impact is beyond measure. And I hope this interview really does bless a lot of future leaders out there, both in fundraising and in the broader nonprofit leadership realm. Unfortunately, that concludes our conversation for today. But I do want to encourage everyone to like and subscribe this podcast. Check out our other podcasts, which include Lead for Good and the Nonprofit Edge. Thank you again, Kenya. You're wonderful.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
You're the best. Thanks for all you do.
Man, I love it. I am so blessed to be able to do this kind of work because it's fun. So thank you. And take care, everyone. Thanks again. We'll see you real soon.
All right. Take care.
Thank you for joining this episode of Mastering Fundraising. We hope the conversation was helpful and invite you to like and subscribe to this podcast for more conversations with extraordinary nonprofit and fundraising leaders. To learn more about Fulcrum Nonprofit Leadership, please visit us on the web at fulcrumleader.com. To learn more about the 5-Tool Fundraiser, please visit us at 5toolfundraiser.com. We want to hear from you. Please share your thoughts and ideas with us at hello@fulcrumleader.com. Thank you for the important work you do to make our world stronger. We look forward to welcoming you back during a future podcast. In the meantime, take care and be well.